All right, welcome to another hobby progress update. This is my lunch break work for the week, as well as a couple of nights. I stepped a little bit away from speed painting to take on some of these projects, so I'm going to run you through what I've done this week. So I'd like to start off with a set of minis that I did from Agema Miniatures out of the UK. They specialize in a pretty specific time period of really Roman history prior to, I'll just call it a Camillan Roman history. So prior really to most Polybian reforms is what I can tell from their range. First I'm going to show some minis that I got from them. I'm pretty excited to get painted up, and these are stone throwers. Stone throwers I use and or will be using as like raw light infantry skirmishers. And stone throwers are not really well represented across ranges, so it's really awesome to find some. They are, typical to Agema's style, they are a little slimmer than other manufacturers, and the head proportions are more realistic, as are really the hand proportions. Whereas in a lot of manufacturers, you're going to see big toddler size heads and giant Mickey Mouse hands. These are much more realistic. That's not to say that I don't like the chunky boys. I certainly do, but these are pretty cool, and they come right out. This is right out of package. First time I ever opened them. They come in these nice clamshells. They come right out of the package pretty much ready to be primed. You can do a little bit of cleaning to them, but it is not needed. They're ready to go, which I think is really great. It's a testament to their molding and prep. Okay, so some Agema miniatures that I actually painted this week. Let's get on to those. I'm really excited. I'm going to show them first and then talk about them a little bit. So, these are Garamantians or Garmantes. They are a South Libyan tribe that border on the desert regions and are a nomadic tribe. These come from Agema's Carthaginian line, and they call them Nube, which really is indicating that they're a Nubian tribe. I don't think to me, they don't resemble Nubian tribesmen at all, but they really do speak to me for Garmantes. So that is how I have painted these and how I imagine them. I gave them a little bit of cracked earth from an arid, South Libyan landscape. Of course, little greenery, so they blend in with the rest of my army. I'm going to be using these with my Ptolemaic forces. And they'll actually be in my Carintian forces as well, as spearmen armed with javelins. They'll likely usually field them as raw, just probably because of their motivation for fighting for either the Ptolemies or Cairene. Probably not highly motivated. So, how did I paint these? I used Army Painter speed paints for everything as the base, and then I went over it with I built up from the Army Painter kind of it's a bone, kind of a bleach bone equivalent for their contrast paint line. I built that up to white over a few successive highlights, and the lion skins, I used their yellow tone just to try it out and see how it worked. A little more vibrant than you'd expect lion skin to me, but I like the look of the unit, so I left it that kind of very, very saturated yellow. I really, or golden yellow, I like that. The skin, I used the leather brown contrast paint that they have, and I really like the way it came out. I will be using that again for North African tribes. The spears they do not come with the models. The models come with empty hands. You have to drill them, which takes a little bit of time, but not too bad as long as you have a drill. I've got a small electric one that I purchased from Amazon pretty cheap. it does the trick. And then these are my broomstick spears. I picked this up from Ross figure painting as a technique, and I take an old broom head. Well, I purchased the broom specifically for this. I clip some bristles, and then I press them with, I've got some pliers that have a flat end. So flat wire pliers here. I press the ends, and then once they're pressed, I take an X-Acto knife and I shape a spearhead. They then take primer and paint really well. And the reason I do this is twofold. One, take the glue a lot better than metal, a lot better. These things do not pop out too often. The other thing is they can like very easily be bent and they go right back into shape. And third, you will never cut yourself on these. And these can take, yeah, look at that. These can take quite a bit. A metal spear would have bent from that, but these things, no problem. I love this method. They're lightweight, they're cheap, it's awesome. So these guys have a cowhide shields. I didn't know what to do with their shields, but I liked the visual breakup of black and white on this, so I went with that. The other thing I'll mention is the cracked earth. I actually use Citadel's Grelling Earth. I like that product. I think it works pretty well. It's pretty understated here, the way I've represented it, but I like it. And of course I use Agema 1 as my tufts of choice here. And I like the variety I was able to get with those. Okay, on to the next project. And this isn't quite chronological for the week. I actually did these today. These were previously painted and I showed them off. So what have I done since then? I primed the movement tray, and I'm debating leaving all my movement trays black because I actually kind of like the look. But I magnetized them, which is pretty awesome. These are kind of annoying. This is a game that is annoying to do and play if you don't have them magnetized because they don't have any weight to them. So they just fall right out of the trays really easily. I saw a YouTube video. Just follow the method the guy used. He puts a magnet on the back, a little bit of super glue, and then once the magnet's already stuck to this guy and it's dried, you then put a dot of glue and let the magnet hold itself in place while it dries. And that's the method I took, and it only took about 15 minutes, and I'm pretty happy with it. It's actually motivating me to play the game again. So it was a nice little diversion. I also painted a unit from Wargames Atlantic. They have a lot of cool plastic ranges, which I've shown off in the past. This is from their Conquistadors and Aztecs lines. Now, what I was going for here was a little skirmish group that I can use for games like Frostgrave or Silver Bayonet or whatever small scale skirmish. Your typical Osprey game, I think these would be fine for. I don't have a Renaissance game in mind to use them for, although perhaps when To the Strongest Renaissance comes out, I might rebase these and make a Conquistadors army or just a Spanish army for Siege of Rome. That could be pretty cool. I was inspired by watching the movie Oro, or Gold, that you can find. You can definitely find it on the iTunes store. I don't know where else you might be able to get it. But it's a pretty cool little conquistador tale as they go from the Caribbean to the Pacific. I painted these almost exclusively, actually exclusively with Army Painter colors. The bases are all Army Painter speed paints, and then I highlighted on top of it with various Army Painter colors. I used their gray, and I forget, I think it's Gravelord Gray as the base for metal. I think you could actually do some pretty good non-metal metallics using that as a base, but I was a little too lazy. I just put metal edge highlighting on there and get a little sloppy on the shield. But the other colors, for the most part, are just a single highlight of that shade from the Army Painters acrylic range. So a little bit of pure red and a little bit of skeleton bone and a little bit of their matte white. The shields the bronze technically does have a little bit outside of range. I do use a contrast paint over bronze just to kind of give it a little more of a richer, softer hue. This is a guy who I tried to kit bash between the Aztec and the Conquistador kits, and this is based off of, there's a character in Oro who is a native guide who works with them, who wears a little bit of Western dress but still uses some traditional weaponry. I put that guy in here. I don't think the kits are interchangeable in this way. It took a little work to do it. I tried not to put heavy conversion time in because I wanted to really show off what you can do with the kits out of box. A couple of thoughts here. One, I think the kits give amazing amounts of variety in things that are provided. The Conquistadors have multiple helmet types, head types. They've got great swords, rapiers, halberds, arquebuses, crossbows, as well as multiple shield options and multiple arm options. All of that's really great. And you see multiple bodies with different armor as well. All that's really great. They've got very low profile plinths, so it's very easy to hide when you're basing that there even is a plinth there, which I find really nice, because some companies like Warlord and some of the Victrix have really huge plinths that are hard to hide. You have to use spackle or other things to hide them. I was really appreciative that these are very low profile plinths. The thing about them that I didn't love as much was it's hard to find which arms pair up with which unless you have an online guide that you're following. You can't just kind of wing it and open a box and put figures together. You can, but that's not going to do you well for any of the two-armed options. There's one arm that goes with each pairing, and if you don't have the right one, you're going to find out after you've put some glue down. And that did frustrate me a little while I was building it. That said, with a little more prep time, it's not a problem. All you have to do is do a little extra research before you start assembling. So, don't get too excited when you first open the box. Slow down, do a little bit of research. One other thing I will say about them is that they actually mix really well, I think, with some kind of late 2000s and early 2000s Empire figures. So I think these Empire figures might have been the Perrys. I could be mistaken. These ones, not these ones, of course. These would have been after the Perrys were long gone. But they're in that same style. They mix pretty well. They have those kind of features that GW is known for, of big hands and big heads from this era, although not too big. Probably not as big as something like an Aventine figure. I think they fit pretty reasonably well. And I have a large Empire collection, so again, when Two the Strongest Renaissance comes out, I would consider Wargames Atlantic mixed with some classic Empire Warhammer figures as a pretty cool introduction to the era. And I think I might go that route just for nostalgia's sense, if not purely historical. But all right, moving on. And I plan to do some more Wargames Atlantic stuff and showcase it. I'm really excited for that. All right, moving on. I did, as a really smaller project, I did a lot of shield prep this week. And the way I do shields is I spray one side white, I spray the other side army painter leather brown. Pretty boring, but I do this cut right off a sprue, so that is not in the way of a way of painting when I'm painting the models, and also it makes it a little easier for me to base them when I have that configurability at the very last minute. I took a unit that I had, and I needed to. I had another unit done up that I showed in my Hannibal's Twilight that needed its pair so that it could be fielded as a double wide, and I have done that. I took some models that I had from many years ago that I wasn't using. I clipped them off all of their bases. I took their shields off and I replaced them with Victrix plastic shields with Little Big Men Studios transfers to give a little more color to the unit. I did some very minor things like painted on some Torques and gave a couple guys new pants, new shirts. Well, no shirts on these guys. In this case, I gave this guy I don't know what to call it. I guess it's the bottom of a tunic technically, so it's not actually like a kilt or a tartan, but I painted it as if it's one. I used did the shields while they were still on the sprue, and once they were finished, I clipped them off and put them in and touched up the clip points. I think it's a pretty good method. The thing that I'm getting into now, and I'll show you, I have here a shield from Relic that I did a while back, and I used a micro pen, and I kind of liked the results. They're fine, you know, for what they are. They're a little sloppy, well, a lot sloppy, but they're fine. They suited my purposes. But I was speaking with the owner of Relic, and he said, you know, why don't you try some of our transfers? So I've done that. I've got one here that I've done so far, and I plan to do, I have 40 more shields from them and transfers that I'm going to be re-shielding some of the units I currently have, as well as doing some new units and shielding those up with their transfers. I'm pretty excited. This looks obviously a lot cleaner. It's a little more involved of a process, and I'm going to go into it in a future video. It requires some specialized tools and a little more time than my usual shield method, but the designs can't be beat. He's got some really good designs that I think rival the designs that Little Big Men Studios have put together. So more to come there, and I'm excited to show that off in a future video. Next up, I'm going to show off some more work on my Roman army, and I have stepped away from speed painting this week, and I've got a few guys I spent a little more time on for that army. I've got I'm trying to think of what they're called, Aquilus, I believe, an eagle bearer here. Using Army Painter speed paints with then highlights over, not dry brush, but like a controlled highlight, and I don't know what this guy is really. I guess he's maybe he's a Republican era consul. I'm not sure what the equivalent would be in early Imperial Roman. I've just recently become interested in early Imperial Roman, so I'll have to look it up. But a couple guys, and these are going to replace the two plastic heroes that I had painted just 2 weeks ago. I'm going to pop those off the bases. They're ugly, and they're plastic. I prefer for individuals to be metal. I don't know why. It's just nice to have a little more weight to them. These are both Warlord, and they're both from the Warlord midget range. I have one more from that same range that I love. I really love this. This was a miniature that came with the army that I purchased from a friend many years ago, and it was unpainted, and I decided to give him a little extra attention. He's got a couple layers of highlights. His bases are still Army Painter speed paints, but then I spent a little time highlighting, again, 2 layers in pretty much all areas. I'm pretty happy with the results. You know, apparently I don't know what a German Shepherd looks like. That's okay. I think I've captured our friend here, Maximus, reasonably well. He's going to serve me in Kings of War as a steam drill, which is a individual character that you pointed at something and it goes and kills it. I think that's appropriate enough for our eponymous gladiator. And in things like To the Strongest is just going to be a command base or potentially a hero. So I'm actually really happy with that guy. And I used the basing that's standard across that Imperial Roman army I'm working on. Okay, let's switch scales. Let's go to 10 millimeter and talk about what I've done. I'll start off with some Pendragon models. Well, it was really a mix, Pendragon and Magister Militant. These are Indian command models. Let me mark the edge of the camera because I keep doing that. These are command models to finish off my Indian army. One of these is meant to be porous, but I'm using the porous figure twice, so I don't know. One of them will be porous when I play. I put on a couple of archers on the bases just to fill them out, and the reason they're on 30s for command, which is larger than I typically do, is because my other command model for that army is mounted on an elephant, and he's on a 30. And this is a hero model. I've got 3 heroes that go with the army. I also based up, I did not paint this, a friend painted it for me. I based up a, this is a Vargo Hote figure riding a Zorse for Game of Thrones. I play A Song of Ice and Fire in 10mm often, and we play a lot of To the Strongest using Game of Thrones figures, as you might have seen from my Tyrell army. This is a Mercenary commander that I use sometimes with my Baratheons and other times with the Boltons. It's not quite canon, but it's a pretty fun little model to use. And that was painted by a friend. Next up, let's go into Magister Militant. Let's go in hard. So another unit for Game of Thrones. These are either Tyrell aligned, and I already forgot what it's called. It's like Beesworthy or Beesworth or something with a B, like BEE. They are a house in the Reach. The crossbowmen, and I also use them as Baratheon crossbowmen. I don't typically field them in this gigantic movement tray. This is just to move them on camera quicker. Normally I would have them fielded as small skirmish units, and I probably would only be fielding 1. But I had the models, so I figured why not finish basing them. They've been sitting like right here for the past, I would say, 12 months. So I'm glad to have them off my table. There's an extra 2 minutes of work to finish them. I'm on a quest to finish off old armies, and especially ones where I had 40mm frontage units, because we've changed our standards to 80mm. So this is a group of Tarentine Lucaspides that are armed with spear, and potentially I could use them with javelins, spear and javelin, but really these ones are just meant to be with spear, and they're Tarentines that go with my Pericarmie for invasion of Italy. And I previously had 1 unit of this in 40mm. Now that I have 2, I'm at 80mm standard. Great. So I have now finished my Pericarmie, which is pretty exciting. I have said it before, maybe I'm going to say it again, but I may have now finished my successor Salukit Army. So looks a lot like Alexander. It's not. It's going to be Antiochus and his command. He's going to be a heroic great leader, and this goes paired with companion cavalry, and I've got a bunch of companion cavalry. I did not paint these. I actually bought these, and I bought them in a lot, and I left them exactly the way they were, which is very rare. Most of the time when I buy things on eBay, I just use what's there as base coats at best, and I have to do a lot of work to it. I was very happy the way these looked, so I left them. Just finished off the basing. Some more Salukids. I have some camel riding archers, where they had allies that rode camels. I don't think they did doubling up like this. I think they had maybe single riders. I'm not sure. This doubling up would have been from a very, very much earlier period, like 1,000 years prior. But I like the way the models look, and Magister Militant has a limited range of Camel Archers, so I went with those. Continuing with Magister options, I have a Seleucus. This is Alexander the Great. This one was painted by a friend. Really love the paint job. I don't have an Alexandrian army, so I'm going to use him as Seleucus. And still on with the Seleucids, but I'm going to move into another manufacturer. These are Steve Barber models. These are cataphracts. These are Armenian cataphracts in my case, with Tigranes, I believe is who this is, although I forget the name. Unfortunately, I should have written it down ahead of time. Is our Armenian leader who would not be of the same time period as Seleucids, would be more like a Mithridatic Wars. But I included him because this is also going to be part of my Mithridatic army. These cataphracts, though, I will field with Salukits. Little out of time frame, but I really like it. There's a Parthian banner bearer here, and the rest of these are Parthian or Armenian cataphracts. They've got full and half barding, but it's pretty impressive looking. You know, at first glance, it looks like everything's full barded, but if you look really close, there's a few that are only half barding. Went with the pink and blue, slightly as a callback to Rome Total War. The Parthians, pink was their color, if you happen to recall that. Sticking with, another Steve Barber cataphract, really poorly cast. He's like falling off. I probably should have asked for a replacement, but what can you do? I already painted him up, it's fine. With the Salukids, I also needed a camp, and I've got a couple of ideas that I might pursue for camps for them, but I did this one up, and I think I'm going to use it for both my Achaemenid Persians as well as my Salukids. It's some Magister Militant baggage camels with Old Glory. These are Eastern engineers, but I thought they did really well as kind of Persian servants or you know, merchants or whatever. But these guys are going with a camel train. You could also use this in scenarios where you have to like escort a baggage train off a table, something like that. This was a fun little vignette to do. I used a lot of that Agrellan earth as well from Citadel when I put it together, and I used some layered cork here for kind of a deserty looking rise, which I don't typically do in 10mm. You've seen me do it a lot in 28mm. Pretty much every unit has elevated terrain. But I think I'm going to start doing it for 10mm because this was very fun to do, and I think it still looks okay at this scale. This is a camp for To the Strongest. I don't know if I would really use it for any other games. A couple other little items here. I'm actually going to skip because they're just more of the same rebasing. Something that's coming up soon. I'm going to hopefully finish my strength and armor forces. This was a skirmishing unit that I'm just started. Once those are finished, I'll give a talk for the whole army, and hopefully I'll have a game under my belt because it comes out, I think actually today. Now I'm looking at my watch. Then I have a Caesarian project coming up as well. I've done one test figure for it, and I have some shield transfers on the way for this project. Once the shield transfers get here, I'll be able to do a little more work on it and show it off. All right, well, this is a lot longer than I expected, especially considering that I feel like I didn't have as productive a week as I typically do. But I will be back next week with more. Hopefully I'll have a productive week. This weekend I'm off to a grand tournament, so I will have no weekend hobbying at all. I'm just going to be playing. When I come back, I think I'll showcase the army that I played in this event. And give you a view of my undead orcs and goblins army. All right, well, thanks a lot for sticking around, and we'll speak soon. Bye.